As many of you know, I've been in this industry for well over a decade now, specifically building platforms, tools, products, communities in the modern day financial space. And all the while, I've been managing my own money. So I do not use a financial advisor. I never will. I will never become a financial advisor. I am only interested in the rise of do it yourself investing and trading. And that's what I've been doing. I've had some really tough losses, I've had some nice wins. I've definitely learned a lot. And all the while, I'm saving on financial advisor fees, by the way. So I'm just a believer in that. Now, by the way, before I do get started here, like I said, I'm not a financial advisor. I never will be. I just don't believe in the industry. And none of this is advice. This is strictly education and entertainment. You should always do your own research, do your own thinking. You're your own person. Be creative. Do what you got to do out there. But this video is about an indicator I coded called Stef's dollar volume counter. So you can see I have it listed on my chart here at the bottom. These bars here, this is Stef's dollar volume counter. I've also just got the name of my dollar volume counter right here. You just can't miss it. And I'm going to walk you through what this dollar volume counter is, why you should use it, and also some ways to think about it with some of the settings I offer, like this table here that shows you some key stats. Okay, so let me get started by saying if you want to access my dollar volume counter, you go to tradingview.com, open up your chart, tradingview.com/chart. There's an indicators, metrics, and strategies button up here at the top, which we can click. And then, of course, all we have to do is just search for Stef's dollar volume counter, and you'll see it right there. I've got it favorited. Please give it a favorite. It does help me. Click it, and you will have it added to your chart. You just click, and it's on your chart. Now, the key thing here is to understand that when it's added to your chart, you're going to have two separate panes. So I've got this pane that I can adjust accordingly. And what it's showing me is how much money was traded on the chart. So I can literally see, you see this giant bar here? I can hover my mouse over this bar and see that on this particular day, Apple traded $51.1 billion worth of stock. 51.1 billion from 9:30 a.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern. I mean, it's just flat out. I mean, you just don't see that often. In a single trading session, $51 billion were traded in Apple. Now, by the way, for those who are new, you can quickly see I'm looking at Apple. It's right up here. It's right here as well. You can also see I'm on a daily chart. I have a candlestick chart open, so each candlestick means one full day of trading. But if I do change this, say, to 30 minutes, well, now each candlestick means 30 minutes worth of trading. So here's 30 minutes, here's the previous 30 minutes, the previous 30 minutes, and so forth. And by extension, my dollar volume counter bars are showing you how much dollar volume occurred each 30 minutes, because now we're on a 30-minute chart. Let's just go back to a daily chart because I think that right now is the most interesting. And by the way, I have to remind you that this is fundamentally different from normal volume bars. In fact, right over here, I have got some text that shows you the exact calculation for this dollar volume. So you can see here it says price times volume equals total dollar traded. So price times volume equals total dollar traded. Now, that is fundamentally different because these volume bars tell you how many shares were traded, or if you're looking at crypto, how many coins were traded, or if you're looking at futures contracts, how many contracts were traded. But the dollar volume counter is showing you how much dollar was traded. It multiplies the price of the symbol times the total volume, and you understand how much sheer dollar volume was traded in that specific session, time interval, anything of the sort. Now, why does this matter? Well, first of all, let me give you an example. Let's say you are interested in trading Tesla. We're going to go to a chart of Tesla. And let's say you've got $500 in your account and you want to trade some Tesla. Hey, I got $500. Let me go trade some Tesla. Well, you have to ask yourself, where do you fit in the grand scheme of things? What's your slippage going to be? What's your liquidity going to be? How easily can you get in? How easily can you get out? Well, if you have $500 and you're trading Tesla and you open up my dollar volume counter, you'll quickly see that just a few days ago, some $53.4 billion worth of Tesla was traded in a single session. So if you have $500, that's a fraction of a percent of all of the volume that was traded on this day, you're going to be able to get in rather easily and get out rather easily. You're basically just a little tiny mosquito on the wall in the grand scheme of things. So you can really put into perspective what that money means at a large scale. Also, for the new traders and investors out there, it's a really great reminder about what type of money is involved in markets. Like, these are huge sums of money going in and out. And with the dollar volume counter, you can visualize that. Now, this is the next key point about the dollar volume indicator that I think is really important: perspective on big money. So actually, if you look at this Tesla chart, check this out. If you go back to December of 2020, you can see that Tesla set a record here at what looks to be some, over 150. I mean, just a jaw-dropping amount of money was traded on Tesla here. In fact, trying to make sure I can get my mouse over it. I can't get it to get perfectly over it. 154 billion was traded right here on Tesla on this specific day. I mean, wow, who was involved on that day? What funds were exiting? What funds were entering? Did a large investor enter? Was there an earnings report? Was there some sort of news event? There just are so many questions that you can investigate once you see spikes like this. One more thing I want to say that's super interesting about these spikes is to understand what the price of the asset did after the spike occurred. So let's see if we can just mark this here. So it's so fascinating that it's not even a noticeable candle. There's such a fair equilibrium of trading going on that it's not even moving the chart, to an obvious perspective. What I mean is, if you looked at this chart and I told you that there was a massive amount of money traded on this day, I don't think it is that easy to tell. I suppose this breakout might, give you some insight, but the very next day it went lower. So all those buyers were underwater super quickly. And actually, if we go back and we look at Nvidia as well, we can see another somewhat sizable spike or two. Actually, looks like there's quite a few spikes here. Let's see. This is Nvidia, and we've got, let's normalize this chart here. Click this A for auto. We have got, wow, there was $99.9 billion worth of Nvidia traded on this specific day. I've highlighted it here. We can zoom in. Once again, it's just so interesting to see that the price action is not as bullish or bearish as you would think. It's sort of traded sideways after that type of volume, which is a reminder that these transactions probably occur when people are doing a fair transaction that's maybe been agreed upon beforehand or is known about to some extent in the market, or there's enough buyers and sellers on both sides to not move it too much on this type of scale. So you can really get a feel for these large money moves and do some investigation into them and what they can mean. Now, my favorite example of this most recently is actually on Apple. What's the big money saying? What's going on? Well, you may not know this, but just recently, Apple set a new record for total dollar volume traded at what looks to be about 51 billion. Now, I went back in time on this chart. You can do this once you get this indicator. And I found that at no other point did Apple trade 51 billion or even close to that. I'm back to 2005. We can just draw a line here. Let's do 51 billion right there. We can see that at no other point has Apple exceeded that range, except in just the last few days. You can see it right here at the line. Now, we know Warren Buffett is a huge holder, and this is where you can ask yourself, is it possible that someone like him with his sheer dollar amount maybe made a massive movement on this particular day? Will we see in a future filing that he's no longer in? And what is his research team saying that maybe we don't yet know or haven't discounted in just yet? So you can really get some fantastic perspective and insights into what the big money is doing. You have to do some hard work yourself, but it's definitely worth looking into. Now, next up is that this indicator comes with tons of settings for customizing your indicator and getting the look and feel you want. First of all, the setting I love the most is this table down here. So first of all, pay attention to the fact it says selected time frame 12 months. Now look at the highest dollar volume, 51 billion, lowest dollar volume, 4.5 billion, average dollar volume, 10.8 billion. All of these numbers here are being calculated and chosen based off of the last 12 months. So we can quickly see the highest and lowest dollar volume days over the last year and an average. Also, if we double click on this table, we can change the period. It says months, it currently says 12. If you just wanted to see the last month, maybe you're trading a very short time frame, well, you can recalculate this. So now it says selected time frame 1 month. The average daily volume over the last month is 16.6 billion. So you can do this right from the settings menu by double clicking that. I'm actually going to keep it to 12. I personally like to see what the highest and lowest points were over a year. That's enough data for me, at least, to understand what's changed in the last 12 months. There's also the capability for you to add a moving average to this chart, and you get to decide what you want the period to be. So I'm looking at a daily chart. So this is a 50-day moving average of all tradable dollar volume. If I did 100, let's do 200. I'm going to do 200-day moving average. Now I can see the average dollar volume traded over the last 200 days just by looking at this blue line here, which can smooth out the process a little bit for you, give you some insights into sort of a smooth rolling line over time, not just quick numbers going up and down as bars. Also, naturally, you can change the color. So big money traded upper color is blue. That just means that this is big money. It's got a high peak to it, and there was clearly a lot of money traded. Doesn't mean bullish or bearish. That's super important. That's why the default colors are not green and red, but you can change these as needed. For example, why don't we do big money traded? Let's do this dark blue, and let's do little money traded. How about this orange? We can customize this as needed, and it will adjust accordingly. Also, in the spirit of Doge, I've got a show, wow, much money text. That's a Doge reference for those of you who don't know. But I want to give you background into this because this show wow much money text, when you have this selected, is going to instantly identify the 3 highest points on your visible chart based on these last 12 months, and then tell you the amount and remind you of our classic Doge friend, wow, much money. So if you're interested in just seeing the 3 highest points and going between symbols, let's go to Tesla. Let's see what happens. These were the 3 highest points. Remember, it's 12 months. This line is way further than 12 months. So you can quickly understand where the 3 highest points are in terms of total traded dollar volume at any point on the chart you're looking at. I'm going to turn that off because now I think I've saved my most favorite feature for last, which is adjust the dollar volume for the M2 money supply. Ladies and gentlemen, this feature is just flat out my favorite feature. Now, here's why. I think we're all familiar with the talk of inflation, that there was lots of money printing that's occurred. After COVID, they definitely did stimulus that increased the money supply. And the money supply is essentially a function of how many dollars are in circulation at any point. So what you can do is because Stef's dollar volume takes the volume aspect of trading and turns it into a dollar volume indicator, well, now you can fairly normalize that for the amount of dollars in circulation. Essentially, you can adjust the tradable dollar volume or the money supply. So if you double click this and then click adjust dollar volume for M2 money supply, the indicator is essentially going to look at all of the dollar volume that's traded and divide it by the total amount of money in circulation. So you can actually watch the difference in these bars here. Now, as I was demonstrating earlier, I want you to look at this bar right here. Apple just set an all-time high in dollar volume traded. So if we look here, we can see it's 51 billion. We can see it in our table right here. But if you adjust this for inflation, while it is still an all-time high, pay close attention to the volume that appears here once it's adjusted for the money supply. What it demonstrates is that even though this is an all-time high, it's not as high as you think it is when adjusted for inflation. In fact, what might be interesting if we do this on a weekly basis, adjusted for inflation, absolutely fascinating. So if we adjust this for a weekly basis for inflation, actually back in 2012, Apple did far more tradable dollar volume adjusted for inflation than it's done today. So let's now unadjust this chart for inflation and let's watch what happens here. So I'm going to double click, turn this off. Let's give it a second. Look at that. Fascinating. The highest points were actually in these regions. So you can really gain a lot of insights there in terms of how, actually significant is this moment when adjusted for all of the printable money? And while it still is significant, there's more money in circulation, there's more growth out there, there's more technology out there, there's more access to markets, meaning this just might be the start. This might want to at some point test these highs. So we can only find out though, but now we have this information to make these types of interesting types of inferences. So the M2 money supply gives you this capability to adjust this indicator for inflation, and it's right here, this checked box. I'm going to turn it off, head back to the chart. And as I wrap up this particular presentation, I just want to say that there are a few cool facts and tricks and insights you could do. Number one, you can look for the most money traded in a symbol's history at a specific time period. I think NVIDIA is a rather interesting example. And here's why I think NVIDIA is interesting. Currently, it's calculating. Now, the AI boom really just occurred. And what you can really see here is ignore price entirely. So if I double click, here's the chart, right? Here's the chart. But just look at the dollar volume that's been traded. And what does that tell you about NVIDIA? You can actually see that it's been creeping up since 2023, well before the AI mania occurred. In fact, this first initial spike is May of 2023. Let's go to May of 2023. We can see this back here. So the sheer dollar volume that's being traded can tell you quite a bit about a trend and how many people are getting involved at any point in time. So without further ado, go check out this indicator. You know how to access it. I also just want to remind you that it's open source. You can find all of the open source code right here on the chart. Go through it as you please. Tell me what you think. You can write in the comments if you need me to adjust anything or add a specific feature. Also, shout out to the PineScript community. They are just the best. They share a lot of open source indicators and insights. And effectively, if you wish, you can also check out this source code in the PineScript community and dive right in yourself. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this indicator. You now know how to get it. And I will do more videos like this so that you know about the indicators I code and just the things I'm creating and writing about markets in general. Thanks for watching.